Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I think what we have found during the last 9 months that the lockdown was applied and where the Department of Employment and Labour brought out three directions. The three directions effectively, the first one set the standards, the second one refined it, and the third one, which was agreed to by both Labour and organised business, was very well refined towards the end of the last year. And what you now have is a document that has been agreed to and that can be applied by all of industry equally. And what we have found in terms of the inspections conducted by inspectors is that employers are still not complying with the direction as well as the relevant regulations and the act itself. So you find that as the inspectors were doing inspections, and they've done well in excess of 12,000 inspections during the past several months. And in that, we have found that there were numerous contraventions in relation to the regulations for hazardous biological agents as well as the directions. Now, the onus that has been placed on employers has not been new or different from that which has been in place previously. In other words, it wouldn't be deemed to be more onerous than in the past. That is my feeling on the issue. And the reason why I say that, if you take simple issues like risk assessments, all employers are required to have their risk assessments in place. In addition to that, part of the bodies that have been established or should have been established at workplaces where they were required would have been your health and safety representatives should have been in place where they are required, where employers have more than 20 workers at the workplace, or health and safety committees where there are more than two health and safety reps, or rather where there are two or more health and safety reps at the workplace. These committees and the health and safety reps are there to assist the employer in managing all that is required in terms of the COVID issue. In addition to that, where the employer is required to have compliance officers at the managerial level, they are required to ensure that this is in place, and that obviously the idea is that these structures that have been put in place are there to assist the employers. So what is it that they are required to do is no different to what they have been doing in the last 9 months or so. And what we are asking is that employers tighten these measures together with the organized labor so that we can have a turnaround. Certain sectors, such as your manufacturing and iron and steel sectors, are seriously lagging behind with compliance levels of 50% and less, whereas you have your sectors such as your construction sector and your financial services sectors that are doing quite well or above the norm at about 70+% in terms of compliance levels after inspections by inspectors at the workplace. Now, the unique thing about the direction itself and the refined one, the third one, is that employees who feel that employers are not taking health and safety seriously at the workplace can follow certain procedures and they can leave an unsafe workplace. But I would like to emphasize that these employees must make sure they follow the procedures that have been put in place in terms of direction. So in terms of direction, one of the requirements is that the employer must contact an inspector. The inspector will go out within a certain period of time and will then determine whether or not that workplace is safe. That is one of the first of the criteria in terms of determining the safety of the workplace. So what is it that employers are required to do? Nothing has been added. You will know that there's talk about moving to lockdown 4 as well. And at this stage, where we have moved to lockdown 3, we have maintained the direction as is. And if there are any further changes, the Department of Employment and Labour will inform employers and employees out there in terms of what is required of them. However, we have, as I've indicated, the compliance level, the overall average compliance level is far too low at below 60% for employers. We are asking employers and employees jointly, as well as organized labor, to work together to change the mindset that exists at the workplace in order to ensure that safety and health does become a priority at the workplace.
Now, where adherence or the lack of it is glaring, are there any penalties that are targeted at businesses?
There are penalties. What we do is we'll do the inspection. Post the inspection, we'll do a follow-up inspection. And at that follow-up inspection, if employers still don't comply, and we do find employers tend to comply during the second visit mostly. If they don't comply on the second visit, that is the follow-up visit, you could find that we then recommend the prosecution to the courts, to the prosecutors, and the prosecutors will then take that matter further to in front of a magistrate, and the magistrate will determine what the penalties will be. So the inspector's role is to recommend the prosecution after a non-compliance on a follow-up inspection.
Now, you mentioned that your inspectors have visited 12,000 businesses, a huge amount. But obviously, I assume that the work carries on. And what are your targets over the next couple of months?
Without a doubt, over the next 6 months, we will prioritize inspections at the workplace. We have employed, and you've heard us talk about this on numerous occasions, we've employed the 500 inspectors, and these, the first half of the inspectors have been trained up and they are ready to become active. The second half of the inspectors will focus on them now, and they will be trained up and they will be obviously mobilized and deployed to the hotspot areas. So in the next 6 months, our priority then will be hotspots that we'll work together with the Department of Health on in order to try and reduce the burden that is being placed on both our communities as well as the healthcare facilities in the different provinces. So hotspots will definitely be a big priority for us going forward.
Are you able to say what the incidence of COVID-19 has been in business? Obviously, over the last few weeks, in fact, we've seen a huge surge in COVID-19 cases. Most businesses have been closed. Maybe you'd care to comment on that?
Yeah, there's been several thousand cases that have been reported to the compensation fund. That is in terms of the work-related infections. So the compensation fund won't reflect on the general infections within communities. The deaths that have been recorded are in the region of about 30, I think it is, that has been noted statistically. Now, I don't want it to feel as if I'm making light of the number. We would obviously like each and every single person to come out of this if they are infected. So this is where we are emphasizing the need for people to respect the social distancing, the washing of hands, the sanitization, when at the workplace, disinfecting, and taking any other measure that will be required in terms of what has been determined by your risk assessment for your particular workplace. We know that there are those categories that are more susceptible, such as your vulnerable workers, and we are asking employers to please to be mindful of this group and to take the necessary precautions. We have gone through a phase of working from home, and I think we are quite mindful of what has been achieved and what can be achieved within the new way of working that has been put in place. So in terms of the number of people that have been infected, that has been reported as a result of work-related infections, we believe that we can bring this number down, and any infections that take place will be as a result of community-related infections, and therefore we are beseeching the communities to manage what is happening within their surroundings. Workplaces, health and safety representatives, health and safety committees take charge, make sure that things are.
Tibor, thank you very much. We're going to have to call time on that conversation. Tibor Szana, Department of Employment and Labour.